Here at KFR, we don't take kindly to propaganda. It's one thing to hear multiple opinions, but it's another thing to just share only one opinion and then not the other. And that is why we decided to say fuck you to Trump and skip watching A Dying King, The Shah of Iran, and instead we watched The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, 1947. The following podcast contains spoilers for The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, 1947. You have been warned.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of KFR News Radio. This is your host, Benjamin Button, along with your host, Miguel Magusto.
Hello.
Hello, my dear friend.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little tired, you know. It's been a long day.
I gotta be a little quiet because the little guy is sleeping right above me.
Little man takes naps. He slumbers.
He takes naps. I'm also worried about the power going out.
Yeah, I was too. It was quite the tenacious storm coming through.
Yes, we'll see what happens. How you doing, though?
Not bad. Watched a couple movies. You know how this podcast goes. We do
that
this
is something
too.
we do.
I think I watched 4, including our movie, one of which we actually saw together.
Yes, we did.
Which is awesome. So let me just go ahead and go through those bad boys. The first one I actually watched, this was like an interesting week. I was all over the place with genre. The first one I watched was Fanboys, which is a film that came out in 2009 about a group of friends that really want to go to the Neverland Ranch, and by the Neverland I mean Skywalker Ranch, to grab the episode 1 film before their friend dies and watch it, obviously before he croaks. And I can see myself liking this movie if I watched it probably back in 2009. I didn't hate it. I want to preface that I didn't hate it. I just think I would have loved it more. At the same time, Superbad and all that came out. If I watched it then, overall wasn't too bad. I was along for the ride. Not in the van with the boys, but I was along for the ride. After that, I watched Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas, which was an animated film back in 2003 with Brad Pitt, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Michelle Pfeiffer, and a bunch of other people. This, reading the reviews on Letterboxd is so goofy because so many people have boners for this movie. Just how do I explain
what movie
this?
Is it again?
Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas.
Oh yeah.
This is a lot of the comments are, this is the sexiest animated movie ever, and God,
those people haven't seen Heavy Metal.
Oh, look, they haven't seen Looney Tunes
or
Lola Bunny. Jesus. No, it was overall it was actually a really good movie as far as animation and voice acting went. Michelle Pfeiffer knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
With her character, and I mean, people are right. These cartoons are sexy, but I wouldn't ever go and be like, "God damn, these cartoons are sexy" on a review.
Yeah, it's something you keep in secret.
Yeah, absolutely. Just put it away, put it in a little box. But yeah, that was actually a really good movie. I had seen it briefly, in parts. I told you over the weekend that a lot of my experience in movies before meeting you was watching parts of movies.
Yeah.
So that was one of them, and of course there's probably tons and tons more. After that, I watched The Sunlit Night with Jenny Slate. Very okay movie. I saw this on Hulu. I do like Jenny Slate in most of the things she's in. And I was like, you know what, I'll give this a little gander. It's very artsy, literal, she's an artist movie, and she's painting a barn, and she's kind of just in Norway with her and another artist, and she's trying to figure out what she wants to do with her future and how she wants to become her own person in the world of art and stuff like that. And it was okay. Kind of boring, honestly. I think Jenny Slate was obviously the best part. Zach Galifianakis is in there, and he's a Viking, technically. But he's the most American Viking you'll ever see.
Oh, yeah.
But in that, it was okay. And then, of course, we watched Suicide Squad together. But there's a
Suicide Squad.
Yes, I'm sorry. The Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
But instead of talking about that, we have a review that I've worked really hard on.
He did.
That
He
is
killed
up on
it.
the YouTubes.
Yeah.
And other than that, Walter Mitty, which we will talk about after you tell us what your line down is.
First, I want to go back to your the movie Fanboys. I was gonna say something, and then you kept going, which is fine. You know,
sorry. Yeah.
that's how this podcast works. We both talk, not just me. As rare as that might sound.
Tell me about it.
So I saw the Fanboys at the Oaks Theater. Back when it was in theaters in 2009, and I knew nothing about it at all. Really,
Yeah.
I just was like bored and was like, "Fanboys, Star Wars, okay, sign me up." And I went and saw it, and it really took me by surprise. I didn't expect it to be as emotional as it was.
That's good.
And yeah, Dan Fogler is great. I love Dan Fogler. I want him to be in more. He played the chubby guy who is obsessed with Han Solo. I forget his character's name.
Yeah, I forget too.
Hutch, maybe?
I can look it up again.
For some reason, Hutch is coming to my mind. But yeah, I really enjoy that movie. And it was really cool when, I guess it's sad, but also kind of cool, when Force Awakens was going to come out.
It's it is Hutch.
Oh, cool. Nice. Look at that memory on me. But when Force Awakens was going to come out, this man who was dying of terminal cancer J.J. Abrams sent him the cut of Force Awakens before he passed on. So it was kind of cool that, sad but cool that life or film emulated life, you know, in the futures. Just a little tidbit. Well, anyway, so I saw 6 movies. Including Secret Life of Walter Mitty. First one I watched is Jungle Cruise, the Disney film with Emily Blunt and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Good old
and,
DJ.
Jack Whitehall. It's fine. It's a fun movie. It's not going to blow anyone's minds. Jesse Plemons was great in it. I liked him a lot. It has the same annoying Disney tropes that are in like every movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, you kind of expect that. But it's a fun movie. It's probably one of their better throwaway movies, just because like this was based on a ride.
Yeah.
So they did a valiant job, given that it's literally just a movie based on a ride.
Yeah, I had a conversation with somebody about that today, and they were like, "Yeah, I just wish there was like more characters from the ride in the movie." Not with this specifically, but we were talking about a bunch of like Disney ride movies. And I was like, "Well,
there are no characters in the ride."
That's what I said, and then I'd gone to say, I was like, it's even more of a miracle that a movie was even made.
Yeah.
The fact that it was a ride.
Yeah, it's literally just a bullshit safari that's not real at all. Which I like. I like the Jungle Cruise ride, but like there's no story there. They try to make a story, but there's no story there. So yeah, that it's a fine movie. Definitely see it in theaters if you can, even though it's on Disney Plus, but you have to pay extra for that. So yeah, then I watched A Dying King, The Shah of Iran, which was what Streaming Roulette picked.
Yeah.
And I was ready to talk about how boring it was and how it kind of felt like the kind of movie that you would see when you had a substitute who didn't want to do anything, so they just put on a movie. Or the teacher told them to put on a movie, and it's just boring and filled with information that, like, yeah, I guess it's relevant to the topic, but why should we care about this topic? And I'm not talking about the whole Shah of Iran thing. That is a big thing in American history and everything. But in the last 5 minutes, it turns into propaganda for Donald Trump. And I have no problem with people who like Donald Trump. I think they're insane, and I don't understand it. But, you know, that's your right to be an insane and believe something that I don't understand. What I don't like is that they trick you into watching this hour-and-a-half long film just for it to turn into a Trump campaign, and them not to show the side of the Democrats when it comes to relations with Iran, which, you know, may be wrong, but they take no effort in showing why Democrats act differently towards Iran than Donald Trump did.
I remember you telling me the day I was actually going to watch it too. Like, you were watching it before me, and I was just like, you were telling me all about the movie, and then you're like, at the last like 10 or so minutes, you're like, I think this is Trump propaganda.
Yeah. What I said specifically was, fuck no, we're not reviewing this movie. And again, that's mainly like if it were Obama, I probably would feel the same way. Probably not as strongly because I admit I hate Trump.
Yeah.
I don't hate Obama. I didn't like Obama, but I don't hate Obama. But I straight out hate Trump, so I probably wouldn't feel as strongly. But this is not a political podcast.
Yeah, this is not that at all. We wanted to see a movie and
we wanted to watch a movie
and just talk about it.
And before the propaganda aspect happened, it wasn't even like a real movie. It was just talking heads with boring information.
Yeah.
So it would have been a boring podcast regardless. And then the propaganda thing just tipped what I was already thinking about doing.
Yeah, I was still gonna watch it until you told me about the last 5 minutes. I'm like, yeah, we can skip it then.
But like really, it's just a super boring documentary. Like it's not interesting at all. And what happened with the Shah of Iran is relatively interesting, but they make it the least interesting thing in the world.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough of that movie that we were not going to talk about. Then I watched Suicide Squad with you, The Suicide Squad with you. Polka Dot Man is my homie, and I want a standalone movie with him and his mom.
Absolutely.
You could check out more of our thoughts on YouTube. Then I watched 9 Days, which is a film with Winston Duke, Zazie Beetz, Tony Hale, Bill Skarsgård's in there, and is essentially a movie that is like kind of like the movie Soul, but like live action and what's the word? Emotionally compelling. I seem to be the only person who thought Soul was a big boring pile of poop. I shouldn't say a big pile of poop, but it was boring and did not hit home the way that
not what a lot of people should have been expecting. And then
I wanted it to hit home and it didn't. 9 Days it's essentially this guy who's interviewing all of these people who you find out are spirits who are applying to become alive, like they're applying to be born on Earth,
to be reincarnated.
Not reincarnated, because they just kind of appear. They're not like dead people. And then,
I guess there's a word there that I'm not. That wasn't the right one. Yes.
But anyway, so they're applying. So it's like, and they're going through this trials, and it's really the whole movie is just about like the power of empathy and the power of lack of empathy. And it's just a really beautiful film. I highly suggest people check it out. It is not gonna like blow your minds visually, but it's just a really good movie, and then has one of the strongest endings, at least in my opinion. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of people that completely disagree with me, and that's fine. But like I don't want to say I was weeping, but I shed more tears with that movie than any other movie.
That's actually a milestone there for you.
Yeah, I don't cry much during movies,
You
but
do
this,
not.
and it's not in a sad way. It was just like,
touching.
Very touching, and I really enjoyed it. So that's 9 Days. Highly suggest people see that, especially in theaters if you can. Then I watched Secret Life of Walter Mitty. We'll get to that in a minute. And then today I watched the documentary Val, which is about Val Kilmer, directed and shot by Val Kilmer. It's a bunch of his home videos about his life and everything, about his career, and then kind of intercut with modern things of him, because he had throat cancer, had to have his voice box removed, and it has like a hole in his throat, so he's like that smoking commercial or anti-smoking commercial where like the guy has to have like plug a hole on his throat so he can
little
talk.
Voice box.
Yeah. He just like plugs up the hole and he's able to talk, but it sounds similar. But yeah, just kind of seeing like how he's kind of dealing with that after his career, and seeing how he went from this huge actor to because he can't really act anymore, because he can't really speak anymore, to becoming this actor who kind of just goes to like Comic-Con and everything, and admitting that like he kind of before looked down on actors who had to do that, and now is just grateful that he's able to do that. So it's a really interesting like examination of his own life, and I really think
I do want to watch that myself.
Yeah, it's
just because it does look very interesting, even just from a trailer or anything like that.
Yeah, but I highly suggest people see that. But that's all I watched this week. That's brings us into some news. I'm going to go with my news first, if that's all right.
Yeah.
It might even be the same piece because we didn't discuss.
I think it might be.
Yeah. So Brendan Fraser is he is signed on to join Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon, and he became emotional in an interview when people brought up the point that like everyone on the internet, they specified TikTok, but it's essentially everyone who has access to the internet is rooting for Brendan Fraser. And it's just nice to see, like, I love to see that things are turning around for him because he had like this such prolific career and then kind of got blacklisted because someone sexually assaulted him and he wanted to talk, speak up about it and didn't.
Yeah, didn't he get a divorce too? That kind of
he got a divorce. That
crushed him too.
That crushed him financially and probably emotionally. But Brendan Fraser has been one of my favorite actors pretty much since I first saw him in George of the Jungle or The Mummy, whichever one of those I saw first. I always tell people that like I'd be happy if I won an Oscar, but I could like die that day if I got to work with Brendan Fraser and be happy. I would love to work with Brendan Fraser. Long shot, Brendan Fraser, if you're listening, I got a script for you. I'm not even lying. I do have a script that I wrote apart for you in mind.
That's perfect. So he's also going to be in a movie called Brothers here as well.
Yes. I didn't read up too much about that one. So that's on me though. But he's just got a lot of stuff lined up. His career's finally going back on the upswing. I forget. I think I called it the Brizanaissance or something, or Brendan. It doesn't work as well as McConaissance.
Fraser-sance or whatever.
Fraser-sance, yeah.
It's good to see his career jumping back up.
Absolutely,
he's definitely one of the golden ones. And you'll love to see it.
I do. I love to see it. I'm excited, and also he's got that Darren Aronofsky movie, Whale, coming out that I'm excited for. I love to see that people still want to work with him because I've wanted to work with him since 1996 when I was like 7 years old. So
I was just saying, I'm pretty sure even like in Hollywood that he was always just a good person to work with. Even like the cast of Mummy, just were like, he's such a good dude.
Yeah, I have a friend, I'm not going to name names, but I have a friend who like worked in an event that he was in, and my friend was running the event, so he tried to, and Brendan Fraser was a guest there, so he tried to go up to Brendan Fraser to let him know something, and his security guards just like shoved him out of the way and said like keep away. And granted, like they were rude about it, but technically that is their job.
Yeah.
And they just didn't realize it was him. And when Brendan Fraser found out about it, he was like apologetic about it. So it's just really cool to see that. It seems like he has a level head.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure even more so now that he's, for lack of a better phrase, fallen from grace. But he's coming back. He's coming back with full force to grace and
full of vengeance. He's ready.
Full of vengeance.
I love it.
But yeah, that was my news. I assume that was your news as well.
That was also my news.
Yes, there we go. So let's get into The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, 1947.
Samuel Goldwyn presents the James Thurber story that delighted millions. Starring Danny Kaye, 8 times as funny in 8 hilarious roles. One as Walter Mitty, the dauntless sea rover. Anatole Mitty, the Mad Hatter. Captain Mitty, ace of aces. Dr. Mitty, the brilliant surgeon. Mitty the Kid, Western desperado. Gaylord Mitty, the riverboat gambler. And in real life, Walter Mitty, the lovable henpecked dreamer.
Walter, what's the matter with you?
But can a beautiful vision come true? Can adventure and intrigue rush into his life? Sometimes Walter can't tell where the dream ends and where the nightmare begins.
A clumsy daydreamer gets caught up in a sinister conspiracy.
You practiced that, didn't you?
I did. In my head, I was like, I'm going to do this.
Directed by Norman Z. MacLeod, written by Ken England, Everett Freeman, and based on the short story by James Thurber. It is starring Danny Kaye, Virginia Mayo, Boris Karloff, and Faye Bainter. So this legitimately, once I found out the other film was propaganda, I spun the wheel one more time, and this is what it landed on.
This is the first one.
I took a screen video just to show Glenn that I wasn't making things up. I love Danny Kaye, though. A Court Jester is one of my all-time favorites. White Christmas is one of my favorite Christmas films. I personally think that he is more talented overall. I'm not going to say like in singing or dancing or whatever as Bing, more talented than Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra. He's just a triple threat. And I feel like not enough people know who Danny Kaye is.
I mean, I'll even be honest, I didn't really know who he was too much. And I think I watched A Court Jester.
You did. You watched it at the beginning of your assignments,
so
and you didn't
at
care
this
for
point
it.
Is a blur compared to now.
You said you didn't care for it at the time. I wonder if you would have a different opinion.
I almost guarantee that I probably would have a different opinion.
Because the last 15, 20 minutes alone are just comedy gold of A Court Jester. But we're not here to talk about A Court Jester. We're here to talk about Secret Life of Walter Mitty. We're not going to do what we did with Mallrats.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I don't have many things to talk about besides this for Danny Kaye anyway. But so as almost nobody out there knows, unless you are saw one of our YouTube videos about a top 10 movies of all time, or are involved with me on Letterboxd and saw my top 10 on that list. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, the Ben Stiller one, is one of my top 10s. Like it's up there. It's also up there.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies of all time. And I didn't know, at least until probably I think a year or two after the movie was released, that there was an original one. So I had no idea this movie existed until not that long ago, technically.
Yeah.
So of course, it was only a matter of time until we watched it, and here we are.
Here we are.
So let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. So, I think it's no surprise that this is extremely different from the Ben Stiller version. This is definitely more a product of its time, not in the same way that Mallrats is a product of its time.
Yeah.
But this is like, it's very like glitz and glamour, and the physical comedy is definitely of its time. The thing I think this focused on more that the Ben Stiller one didn't, it focused on a little bit, but not too much, was the daydream aspect, where this had entire like 5-minute segments.
Yeah, there's whole sequences.
Whole sequences where he's daydreaming. And they're all relatively funny. Like the first one or the second one, he's like performing surgery and like asking for all this stuff, and he like asks for a cheese grater and like grates cheese or something.
It's just random shit going on.
And it's just really goofy in that sense. The comedy kind of, in a way, physicality wise, was very reminiscent to me for the Nutty Professor that we talked about a few months back, where it's just like they're not really jokes, they're just really random occurrences, and it works for the most part. It's very dry humor in that sense, and situations that obviously would not happen in real life. But Danny Kaye sells it, in my opinion. He
easily the best part of the movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying to fill space.
I'm gonna and make a runoff sense.
I'm gonna pocket.
Yeah, he's easily the best thing about this movie, and that is like obviously the one thing between the two movies that we can compare. And I really don't want to compare this as much as possible.
Yeah, they're really like completely different.
They're very different. The only thing really comparable is that they have the daydream sequences.
Yeah.
In the other Walter Mitty, I think it works more. Obviously, they had time to work on that. Yeah. This one, I think the daydream sequences were the best part of this movie, in my opinion. And I think everything else, when you're in his real life, is very lackluster. And it kind of becomes, to me, where it kind of blurs in with every other movie at the time of this was made, where it's kind of like a crime drama comedy.
Yes, yeah.
And that's kind of what dulls it down a little bit. But luckily, you've got Danny Kaye giving such a killer performance and being so fun and being so happy and singing and doing random shit like cutting cheese into a man. But it's a lot of fun for sure, no matter really what part of the movie you're in, as long as it's the sequences. Yeah,
I would completely agree. Like you said, the daydreaming sequences in the first one flow into the reality of it more, whereas this does like the obvious wipe. The daydreaming sequences are kind of a a non-issue for the plot, other than it makes people not believe Walter Mitty for when he is telling the truth about murders and stuff. But the thing that I think impressed me the most was like the scale of the daydreams, primarily like the ship sequence when he's the captain. I think that's actually the first daydream where he's on the ship and it's like sinking or whatever, and it's just they really went above and beyond with those sequences. And you're absolutely right, where the main plot is really just like a murder mystery, which doesn't really stand out in the rest. It's kind of like, I kind of wish that it didn't focus on that plot, and it was more just like,
well, it was what his job was. Like he was like I think a creator for characters or stories. He was
a proofreader. A proofreader.
Yeah. Okay. Well, his whole what was cool about it is like he had this job where he could create these stories, but like he didn't do that. He basically, like you said, proofread and never created these stories to write on books or anything like that. But he was there at the job, and he didn't do any of those things. I don't know how the plot would have worked more with going through that. Maybe like, he lost the perfect character or something like that. Yeah, instead of like a whole crime drama thing like this was.
One thing I thought this was going to do was kind of in again, I'm really trying not to compare the Ben Stiller one, but just to set this up, in the Ben Stiller one, Adam Scott is kind of like his career rival. Mm-hmm. There's a character in like the beginning of this where I feel like he's going to be a career rival, and I thought it was going to be him stealing an idea of Danny Kaye's or something, where it, he has to like somehow prove that it was his character all along, and I think that would have been a more fitting. I don't know if it'd be more
I just don't think
interesting, but
this plot, as far as a crime drama went, I don't think it worked as well as I mean, then again, I wasn't living in the 1940s, so I can only say so much. I just think it would have been better if it wasn't that. But I mean, regardless, I mean, the remake or re-movie that we have now is one of my top 10, so I can't complain that much.
Yeah, I will say that they do a good job at making you think he like, in your head you're like, maybe he is crazy.
Yeah.
Like they do a really good job at while the mystery itself is like meh, it's not that interesting. The way it is told and the way that the characters act about it, there is a point where you're just like, maybe he did imagine it all, maybe it's not real. And then they give you like a little Easter egg, and it's like, oh no, he is telling the truth, but then it takes that back immediately. It's like, oh no, maybe he imagined that as well. And I think it did that very well, but that's really only like a 5-minute span in the whole film. But I think it's understandable why when the Ben Stiller one came out, it wasn't like not many people knew it was a remake. It's just kind of like, oh, this was already made at some point. This a movie had been made about this story before, and that's not to say that this movie's bad. It's just like, I don't even want to say it's forgettable, because I'm probably going to remember this movie.
But it's see how it flies under the radar.
Yeah, it doesn't stick out. Like
and even the new one, a lot of people haven't watched.
Yeah, well, that got critically panned for some reason. I still don't understand why it was critically panned. I understand not loving it. Yeah, but like, I don't understand not enjoying it at all, because it is a very enjoyable movie to me. And maybe it's like people thought Ben Stiller was trying to be too serious or whatever.
Yeah, but maybe I don't know.
It's not the first time that he's been serious in a movie, so so I don't understand. But this one, like, if some of the sequences, if you told me before I had watched it that they were sequences from like White Christmas and I just forgot about them, I'd be like, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Danny Kaye's in that. This looks like it could be White Christmas, and that's what I mean when I say it's a product of its time. It doesn't stick out from the rest of movies from its time, and that is more about that age, which ironically is called the golden age of cinema.
And here we are forgetting about it.
That it all looks the same. Whereas movies nowadays, granted, this is more on like computers being able to change visually how colors look. You didn't see that in the 40s. Like maybe a little bit, but not as much as you do today, where you have movies like Amelie, which is like super green, or Book of Eli, which is really brown, and Dunkirk, which is really blue. Like there's not these tones back in that time. It's all just film and Technicolor, which is a very standard look. So that along with its plot is a reason why it doesn't really stick out, and I don't think will stick out. Especially not as much as the Court Jester. Whereas the Court Jester and White Christmas both have such iconic scenes. I can't think of a single scene from this that I would consider iconic.
Yeah.
Good, yes, but iconic, I'm not so sure. But, you got in Court Jester, pellet with the poisonous vessel with the pestle, the flagon with the dragon is the brew that is true. You got that whole thing. Yes, I've seen that movie a lot of times.
That's okay.
In White Christmas, you have so many iconic scenes, from them singing while they're being bombed and everything, to them wearing all red, kind of dressed like skinny Santa Clauses, just because they make them fat. But yeah, it's just, this did nothing for me to really stick out. That's the long-winded way of saying that.
Yeah, I mean, there's the great aspects of it is the physical acting, the singing, the just Danny Kaye himself, even Virginia Mayo is good for the most
Everyone's
part.
good in it. Boris Karloff.
But it's just, it doesn't do much to grab you by the shoulders and say, let's go.
Exactly.
I don't know what that voice that was, but it was probably Al Pacino trying to tell you something. And come on. But yeah, I mean, I liked it. I did. I just don't know, as far as plot and everything went, that anything gripped me like that I was hoping for. But other than that, I had a lot of fun with it, especially those dream sequences when he's doing all the singing. Is like, I don't even remember what the character is. He's like a doctor at first, or not a doctor, but like,
he's like
a scientist or something.
He's a English pilot who has shot down a bunch of German pilots.
Yeah. And
then he comes to like the celebratory dinner, and they ask him to do this bit where he's making fun of Germans, and that's what he's doing.
Yeah, it's a long bit too.
Yeah, it is. And that was what Danny Kaye was known for, was like these comedic songs like that. Court Jester's filled with them. White Christmas, to a lesser extent, is filled with them. That's more of an ensemble piece, whereas this and Court Jester are Danny Kaye's vehicles. But yeah, I agree wholeheartedly that, really enjoyed it, but it's just, I don't think that I'm going to talk about this as much as I do the other two movies I mentioned.
I mean, I think that's all I got to talk about, honestly.
That's the same here. So that brings us to the judgment. As always, we have to decide, and it has to be a unanimous decision, whether or not this is a shelf boy with the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden. So, Glenjamin Bond, does this make it onto the KFR shelf, or does this just, it maybe falls out of our cart? We're not throwing it away, but it might fall out of our cart.
I just bought it and it fell out. Bye.
Oh, no.
I want to say yes just for Danny Kaye and all the dream sequences. I just don't know if I could say yes to the rest of the movie itself.
Yeah.
Because like I obviously stated, those were the best parts. Now, if I could just take those parts, that would get the shelf.
Yeah.
But do I still give it to it because those parts are in it? I don't know. How do we go about this?
Well, if what I'm going to say helps, I think Danny Kaye has better films that we could probably add at future dates. I know we haven't reviewed them yet, but I feel like we should, not just throw it on just for Danny Kaye. Maybe whenever we do, when we review Corchester and White Christmas, maybe they'll go on then. But I would say no, this doesn't deserve to be on the shelf.
Hey, that's understandable to me.
Yeah, and I love Danny Kaye, so this kind of hurts me. But
sounds like it fell off the car.
it fell off the cart. So, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, 1947, does not make it on the shelf with the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden. That brings us to our plugs for this week. Glenn, what is your plug?
Well, funny enough is that we talked about Brendan Fraser earlier, right? I want to plug that video of him being told how much he's adored and how humble he is.
He's so adored.
He's so adorable, too.
He is, yes.
Damn him. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'll find the video somewhere of him being praised and him just being like, oh, shucks, thank you. Because he was wearing a cowboy hat at the time of the interview. He's like, shucks, thank you.
Of course he was. Where is he from? I
don't know, actually.
Because he doesn't strike me as like a southern person. But that's not real.
Indianapolis.
Oh, but he's also Canadian.
That's true.
Oh, interesting. But yeah, love Brendan Fraser. Love that he's getting his praise now and that he's making a comeback. And yeah, Brendan, Mr. Fraser, if you're listening to this somehow, have your people call my people. I do have a part for you.
There's a script.
Yeah, there's a script. Glenn has not read it.
I actually am surprised I haven't.
Well, it's the Eugene versus Humanity feature.
I'm no longer surprised that I haven't read it.
I'm going to work with Scorsese and Leo and Bob De Niro.
Yes, I saw. Congratulations. That's so
Thank
exciting.
you. I think I might be sick. A little anxious.
Oh no.
I mean, it's going to be fun.
You got this.
Got it.
Just know that the internet is so behind you. We're so supportive. There are so many people out there who love you, and we're rooting for you, and we can't wait to see what you do next.
Shucks, ma'am.
But yes, so yeah, that is your plug. My plug, I already showed you my plug because it's fucking hilarious.
It is hilarious.
It is hilarious. There is this Australian comedian musician on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and all those things called Tom Cardy. Some of you have probably heard it, but I'm gonna plug his one song. All of his stuff is good, but his one song, HYCYBH ? And I'm not going to tell you what that means.
Gotta find out.
Just listen here.
And then when he says out loud, I wonder where my car keys are, I still don't say it. But then he asks me, do you know where my car keys are? I look at him in his face and I say, have you checked your vitals? I have not seen your keys, but since you're asking me, you better check out that vital. Of course I'm not serious, I don't think it's up inside your big brown business. But a funnier thing to say to someone who's lost their shit and is stressed out.
That's so funny.
Oh my goodness.
It's so funny. It's
I
amazing.
slap my knees in hilarity.
Slap your knees for
And
justice.
your ass.
And your ass. But yeah, so that song is really funny. Listen to the whole thing. It's most of his songs are short, but that's one of his longer ones. But I listen to it a lot, and I still laugh at it. So it has good longevity. So yes, those are our plugs for this week. Brendan Fraser reacting to people just loving him. Because we do love you, Brendan Fraser.
We do.
And HYCYBH by Tom Cardy. Those are our plugs. That brings us to our assignment for next week. It is my turn to pick. Ooh. And I struggled to pick one. I was originally going to have Glenn pick a number between 1 and 5, but I decided
4.
I probably shouldn't. 1 and 4, whatever. 4? I don't even remember
4.
I don't remember what the other movies are anymore. But I'm picking one that I've wanted to watch for a while, but its reputation precedes it, and I'm a little scared, if I'm completely honest. And anyone who has seen this movie kind of understands why I might be a little bit scared. And it is called Pink Flamingos, and that's going to be on Criterion Channel. Pink Flamingos is directed by John Waters, written by John Waters, starring Divine, David Lochary, Mary Vivian Pierce, and Mink Stoll. What? That's a name, Mink Stoll.
Where
did
did
the
they
Minx
steal?
steal? Yeah. Notorious Baltimore criminal and underground figure Divine goes up against a sleazy married couple who make a passionate attempt to humiliate her and seize her tabloid given title as the filthiest person alive. And that last line there makes you understand why I'm a little bit worried. John Waters has a reputation for being kind of nasty in his comedy. This is a comedy. It's not meant to be taken seriously. But, you know, there's an infamous scene that I'm aware of in this, but there's also a hilarious scene that I have seen where someone asks Divine what her political stance is, and I will not give the answer. Maybe we'll throw the clip in next week, but
we'll see.
It's hilarious, and I've heard it multiple times.
That was even better than Cries and Whispers.
I think it's the future of city living.
Fantastic. It was really fun. Excellent.
Yes.
Loved it. Really good.
Really good.
Right? It's great. Piece of garbage.
The only part I didn't like was snakes. I have an aversion to snakes.
It was divine. I love religious movies.
It's a little gross, but I liked it.
Well, it was really the grossest film I'd seen.
I think John Waters has got his finger on the pulse of America. I think he's got his thumb securely up America's ass.
So that is our assignment for next week. Pink Flamingos on Criterion Channel. Heads up. I know most people probably don't care. I don't care, but it is rated NC-17, and I'm sure it's rated NC-17 for a reason, although that was 1942, so they probably were a little more strict back then. But yeah, if that's not your thing, you feel free to not watch it, but I don't care. Glenn, do you care?
I stopped caring a long time ago.
Yeah, so Pink Flamingos on Criterion Channel. Thank you, everyone, for listening. As always, you can check out our website, www.KeystoneFilmReview.com. On Instagram, we're Keystone_Film_Review. Twitter, Keystone_Film. Facebook, Keystone Film Review. YouTube, Keystone Film Review. And on Letterboxd, I'm Mike KFR.
And I am Glenn KFR.
And that will do it until next week when we see who the filthiest person alive is, at least the filthiest person in 1972.
Or will their tabloid title get fucking relinquished? That hurt to say. I honestly think I had a heart attack.
But it made it funnier that it hurt you to say it. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.